How do you run out of names? There's just infinite names.
That's right.
Stew and Fire.
Lord Stew.
Welcome, everybody. This is 165 Entertainment, and it's Don and Luby, and we're here to talk about Byleth. Byleth. I just said
vocal exercises.
Just said 7 times, still got it on Byleth. And the big controversy that's going around with this character being added as the 5th DLC character to Smash. Quick summary is that, just as I said, they had a DLC pack for Smash Bros. Ultimate, which already has a huge roster, that had 5 new characters added. And the first 4 of them were all third-party characters, which they just revealed that the 5th and final one of that DLC pack was Byleth from Fire Emblem 3 Houses. And the internet went crazy. It is actually the most disliked video on Nintendo's website for Smash Brothers ever. I mean, it's almost to the point where I think it's like 60% thumbs up, 40% thumbs down. In comparison, if you look at all the other ones, it's usually about like 95% thumbs up and 5% thumbs down. So it's a pretty big thing, and we're here to kind of go over and see why this happened. And I think the major points that we're going to cover is, the big thing is people are saying, oh, it's another Fire Emblem character. It's another sword user. You know, it's just like all the other ones. It's Marth version 3. And why we think that's not necessarily so. And I think the other portion of it is the way that it was leading, that everyone thought it was going to be going in a different direction, that it was going to be different people.
Yeah, and before we get too deep into this discussion, there's just a few things we want to clarify. The biggest thing is that we're really big Fire Emblem fans here on the channel, and so we're a little bit biased about this, because the thing is, so everything that you're going to hear is basically going to be our opinions on the matter, and it's completely fine if you dislike Fire Emblem, if you dislike the addition of this character. That's totally fine. That's your prerogative. We want to have an open forum about just the pure hatred and malice that's been surrounding this whole situation. We just want to have that discussion, get things out in the open.
Yeah, we're not here to say that anyone is wrong or anyone is right.
No.
We'll start off by saying we understand why there's a frustration, but not to the level that it's at.
Right.
And to go right into it, I think the big reason is misconceptions and mixed directions have happened. So I think the first point is something that I kind of already hinted at a little bit, is that the DLC packs so far, the 5 characters, have all been third-party characters. We had Joker from Persona 5, which is a game that is not on any Nintendo consoles. I believe it is coming up as a Nintendo console game that's coming out. Next one being Hero, who is from one that has been on Nintendo consoles before, but Dragon Quest wasn't necessarily something that was big on one particular side. It's a very, very large game in Japan. Third being Banjo-Kazooie, which is from Rare and Microsoft. And finally, Terry Bogard, who was from the Neo Geo, is that it?
Well, that was the system. I don't remember the official game that he's from. I just remember him from King of Fighters, which is it's a different series than what he's used to.
Yeah, exactly. So they're all from different. They're all not officially like Nintendo characters, and they're not from there. So when you have 4 iterations of that, and when it comes to the 5th one, naturally you would believe that the 5th one would be a third-party character. Now, I guess that's something that is really how they went through and talked about the characters and how they released them, and that kind of led to that. But there was no direct distinction that said that. And I want to go back to one that is brought up most commonly with is Reggie Fils-Aimé, when they first released Joker, when they first started talking about the DLC pack, and how he's misquoted. A lot of people have said that he specifically said that they're going to be third-party characters, and they're specifically going to be absolutely brand new to the series, and they're not going to be anything else. So this is going against, he lied, he went back on what he said. Number one, he's not around anymore, so pointing the finger at him is kind of a moot point. He's moved on to other things. But the big deal is that that's not what he actually said. He actually went through and said that there are going to be new additions to the series, and they're going to be not like anything you really seen before. There was nothing saying that they were strictly going to be third-party candidates. The fact that 4 out of 5 of them turned out to be third-party candidates, it's more of, I think, a coincidence than anything else, because it was just the aim that they had for it. And that's just not what it was. It's something that people read one thing and they infer other things from it, which is fine. Going back and looking at what he said, I can understand where you would think that it would be entirely third party. But just to go back, that's not what he said. He made it a very vague statement. And to be honest, I think that's probably the better way of doing it, because you can't say they're all going to be third-party characters, because then you get this, and then you lose trust in your community. But you also can't say that they're all going to be Nintendo characters. Leaving it very vague leaves it open to go whatever direction you want.
If he explicitly said one way or another whether the additional characters are going to be third-party, you're really closing the door on like any future Nintendo IP that might like really fit this game really well.
Yeah.
And then it's I said this before when you and I were talking about this off mic, which is that saying that all the new characters are going to be, new to this series, because this game was built on everybody returning. It's, any character that you add is going to wind up being a new addition to the series. So I kind of like, but also see a little bit of like the weirdness around that statement, which is, like I said, it's obvious. Every new character is going to be.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it's like a play on words sort of thing. Yes, it is correct. Everybody's going to be new. I think the only ones that wouldn't technically be new is if you were to turn assist trophies into characters.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, if you're wanting to grab something from it, maybe that's to infer, but then that's... I think it was just meant as more of a general broad statement that it wasn't scripted. He just kind of said it, and it was not really meant as it's been taken.
Mm-hmm.
I think another huge portion that plays into it is all the things leading up to this direct. So for about the week before this direct got announced, there's been plenty of screenshots and different sets of news that have been coming out that have been kind of making us look one way without, and like removing that ambiguity of what choice we could have. And the first one is all this talk about Devil May Cry. One of the directors of the game actually posted something like, hey, we're bringing Devil May Cry to the Switch, and we're going to have new things for the fan. Check out these 3 dates. And it was a Twitter post that was shared everywhere. And one of the dates happened to be January 16th, but the same day when this direct was coming. So a lot of people took that as blatant fact. Like, Dante's coming to the Switch. They're announcing something on the 16th. Sakurai's announcing a DLC character on the 16th. It seemed to be slotted very much together.
I fell for it. It's before that video was premiering on the YouTube show. Don actually messaged me when I was on my way to work. He was like, "Any got any last minute predictions?" And I told him I fell for that Devil May Cry thing. I thought it was going to be a Dante, and you actually called what it was going to be. You said it was either going to be, what was it? You said either Gino or a Three Houses character.
Yeah, those were my two. And to be honest, I was more like 80% thinking Gino and 20% thinking they might just go the safe route with Three Houses.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a very big, because there's a lot of data there that it's, the stuff was 100% true. There was an announcement for Devil May Cry on the 16th. They are bringing it to the Switch. They were having a thing, but that's doing a whole drawing like causation from correlation. Like, just because all these things match up, I mean, they could have just picked a date out of the blue, and they happened to pick the 16th because it was just this day, and who knows, maybe there was the Devil May Cry people actually like, hey, this can generate some sort of hype in a different way because people might draw this conclusion. And it's understandable. It was something that, some people fall for. I get it, but it's like, that's, if you're making that as actual stated fact, it's building something up, and you build up in that way, you're probably going to be disappointed.
Yeah, and I don't blame gossip outlets for trying to do that, because that's the easiest way to get clicks when you think you've got, that final piece of the puzzle, but it's clickbait.
Yeah, it's clickbait, and that's...
Or at least in retrospect, that's how it wound up being, because if it did turn out to actually be Dante, we wouldn't be doing this video, but...
Yeah, exactly. There wouldn't be a talk about, there wouldn't be this huge controversy. And then I think the other thing is everybody went crazy about this, and it's par for the course for the Smash community and people predicting characters. And this time it kind of worked out, but not really. Is everyone looked at that picture of Sakurai for the Direct, and he was like kind of waving a three fingers past his face, and everybody just went crazy with it. They said, oh, it's Devil May Cry 3, it's Kingdom Hearts 3, and it kind of reminds me of back when he had a Direct, and there was specifically a picture, there was an image in the background of him, and there was a purple and yellow chair. And people immediately assumed that because there was a purple and yellow chair, they were revealing a character that had to do with a purple and yellow chair. And the biggest one that I remember was them talking about Skull Kid from Majora's Mask, because the two fairies are purple and a yellowish tint color. And that's another one. It's like, I understand you're trying to go through and make these anticipations and make these judgments, but at this point, when you're doing the area around the person presenting and saying that that's going to be necessarily what's leading to the character, you're really setting yourself up for failure there, because on one point you could analyze it to death, and if for some inert reason that's what happened, it's going to be completely coincidence. When they're going through and revealing these characters, they're keeping their mouth shut on it, so they're not going to be like, let's put two chairs in the background that would reveal the character. No, they're going to be smart about it. They're going to set it up, and the fact that there were two colored chairs in the background were just coincidence. Maybe he just likes those colored chairs in his office. And doing with the 3 it was kind of misleading, because a lot of people were inferring that. And then even after the character was revealed, they're like, oh, the 3 meant 3 houses, which was not 100% correct. It was kind of like, technically it meant 3 houses, but that's because Sakurai is a very unique individual in the sense that he's like, I'd count it in binary.
Yeah,
which, like...
I loved it, but it was also like,
yeah,
what are you doing?
It was fantastic, because it shows like he has this amazing character and he has this sense of humor, but it's like, I've never heard of that in my life. And to show him go through and count and actually show that image meant the 17th game in the series is this, which even if you told me that the number he was showing up and told me about the counting in binary, I still would have been able to do it. I would have went back and he's like, if you exclude this game and this game and this game, then it turns into 17. Like, that was just a stretch. And I think people, even after seeing it, are like, oh, it meant 3 houses. It was there all along. That's not, it is what it ended up being, but it's not it wasn't an actual 3. It was a 17. So I think all these things kind of together led us to look in one direction. We were looking for our Soras, we were looking for our Dantes, because they were third parties, they had some representation with the 3 fingers, and there was other forms of media that were posting out that, speaking of which, with the Kingdom Hearts one, they're releasing DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3 soon, so everyone was going and coinciding with releases. And I guess that's one last point I want to talk about with this mixed direction, is a lot of people assume that just because a new character is coming out, that there's going to be a new product coming along, and they draw those associations to one another. And we'll get a little bit into it when actually we start talking about Byleth, but the release of a Smash character doesn't necessarily relate to the release of a game. Those are just ones that also kind of come up as coincidences. So looking back, we can even look at your Bayonettas. There wasn't necessarily a new Bayonetta game coming out. There was one on the far horizon, but they weren't using Bayonetta as a promotion for Bayonetta 3. They were using Bayonetta because she was a widely requested character. and it won the poll that they had for Smash Brothers. Same with like K. Rool. There wasn't necessarily a new Donkey Kong game coming out. I'm not saying that it's a rule that it never happens, because they had the Dragon Quest character coming out like a month or two before the new Dragon Quest. There was some cross promotion in there, which if you think a gaming company with the biggest fighting game of all time is not going to cross promote its other games that are coming on its system, you are out of your mind. But at the same time, it's no rule. It's not a rule that's saying one's going to lead to the other. So drawing these implications to one another is a little bit more guided than, looking at a 3 and saying, oh, that must be Kingdom Hearts 3, but it's not necessarily a rule. The big portion that I want to take away from it is that there are no rules to these characters.
Right.
There's not a quota that they have to fill of female characters. There's not a quota that they have to fill Pokemon or Fire Emblem characters. There's not a quota that they have to do so many third-party characters. And I think that's what makes it beautiful, is that you have no idea what's going to come on that screen.
Right.
Like, at this point, it could literally be anybody. Anybody at all. And that's crazy to me. It makes every single reveal trailer, like, ridiculously hyped to me. So.
Yeah, this has become something that there's a lesson to be learned about having expectations, and I feel like, and we've all been there, we've all just taken this the completely wrong direction, where we have these expectations and they're not met, and we just get like really angry about it. Instead, what we really should be doing is just learning to kind of temper our expectations. And like I said, we've all done it, like I do it all the time with movies too, but it's just, we got to take a step back and relax and just enjoy this game that we've got 80 plus characters with 6 more coming over the next 2 years.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the other big portion of it too, is there's 6 more. And if you think that, if this character is not for you, there's plenty more to come. And there's also another 75 other characters you can play as. And the beautiful part about it that they did is, like, this is completely optional. Like, absolutely 100% optional. You don't have to buy this character. And for those of you that are like, oh, I bought my season pass and everything, can I return it? Once again, to be fair, at the very beginning, and even with this new pass, Sakurai said the same thing with both of them. Listen, sorry that we can't tell you what's in the pass beforehand. So, we really like you to buy it, but it's buy at your own risk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what was specifically said. I'm going to have it because I don't care what characters they add. I want them all.
Yeah.
I just want them all.
Yeah.
At one point, it becomes less about the individual franchise they're from and how fun that they play as. Like, we were playing the other day, and we played as Terry Bogard, and we played on his stage. And I never thought I would be interested in Terry Bogard or anything like that, because I'm not a huge Street Fighter fan. I like the look of the character, the design.
He's not a Street Fighter, but
that stage was so cool. Like,
I love that stage.
I don't know how they came up with that concept about breaking through the wall, but I just liked it so much. And even when they revealed it, I didn't think I was gonna like it. And then we played it, and it's so much fun. It creates a completely new dynamic, and that's something to be said. It creates a huge new dynamic for a game, and it's only based off of like one character. It's weird to me, but it's also really cool.
That's actually a really good point. I never thought about it like that, because I mean, my main or at least one of my mains for the last like 2 or 3 games has been Lucas. I've never played it like an Earthbound or Mother game in my life. Yeah. But he just plays really well, so it's
just something that you don't necessarily have to relate to the series it's from. You don't. You can just like the character in general and just play as them and have a good time. Like, to be honest, I tried. I don't like Animal Crossing the game. I'm sorry if that frustrates anybody. I tried it. It's something, I'm not huge open world and completely make everything from scratch sort of thing. But I love Villager. I love Isabelle. Villager was my main back in Smash 4. Just because he's so goofy, and it's like so fun to play with a character that's so goofy. But like the series itself, like, I've tried to get into it, and I'm not crazy about it. But you can love a character and not necessarily love what it's coming from.
Right.
And I think that segues perfectly into the big thing about Byleth is that so much hate is being generated from a variety of things. So I guess we just tackle it all as one thing. One, they're looking at it's another Fire Emblem character, and two, saying it's like Marth version .3. It's like it just looks like that. Right off the cuff, I'll agree. A lot of the antagonists of the Fire Emblem series are blue-haired, kind of ruffled, spiky-haired people.
Protagonist.
We get it. We understand. We agree. It's weird. You should try and change up the hair color a little bit. And with Robin and Corrin, they tried to do it a little bit, but it's still like that kind of ruffled hair look. It's just kind of how the series hairstyle is.
Yes, it's a generic look.
It's a generic look, and they'll differentiate it between each of them. So I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
In terms of design, for the most part, it is similar to other characters that are already presented. But I believe that's where the similarities actually stop.
Yes.
So looking at the breakdown of how the Fire Emblem characters were brought in and why they're here and what makes them necessarily unique, I think is essential to look at. So going all the way back to Melee is when the Fire Emblem series was first introduced into the Smash Brothers series. And we were introduced to Marth, and we were introduced to Roy.
Right.
And in that, looking as the fighters in, like, by themselves outside of the series, Marth was from one particular game and Roy was from another. Mm-hmm. I think it was Shadow Dragon and
I forget. It's either Blazing Sword or Binding Blade. One of those two.
So it's one of those two, and it's possible he was in both because I think Roy was one of those one that was a repeat character. So from completely different games, so they're introducing separate games from the series. So it's separate individual games from the Fire Emblem series. And in the original Melee, they were brand new characters, and they were made to interact the same way. They just had slight variations in their moves. So essentially, you could say Marth was the original, and Roy was the echo or clone. We'll bounce back and forth between the terms because essentially
it was cloned back in Melee the way like Ganondorf was like a sort of clone of Captain Falcon, Pichu and Pikachu, things like that.
Yeah, so there were already a bunch of different clones, but the idea of clones is that you're getting in new characters without completely changing the formula. So it's something that it's addressing more of the character rather than how they play in Smash Brothers. It's getting new people, even though they play very similar to one another.
Right.
So Marth and Roy were introducing different portions of it. So they were in Melee. Everybody played as them. Marth was regarded as one of the top characters in the game competitively, and Roy was up there,
right.
not quite the same way, but they had slightly different mechanics, and they were essentially clones of one another. So now we make our way over to Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which now we have Marth, and then we have Ike. And we look around and we try and see, it's like, hey, where's Roy? You figured they would add Roy back in there. Nope. Roy's been added. They got rid of him, and they put in Ike. And Ike is a big brand new character from Path of Radiance or Radiant Dawn, because he was actually in two different games. They were actually one was a sequel of the other. I think Radiant Dawn was the sequel of Path of Radiance. I always get those confused.
That's right.
And Ike is another one. He does look like a similar character. Blue hair. That's where the similarity is still there. We'll give you that.
Yep.
But the way that he is in his game, the way that he plays in his game, the way that he plays in Smash Brothers is drastically different.
So totally different.
Marth had a nice little finesse to all his moves. He had that tipper mechanic to where if you hit with the tip of the sword, it was a little bit stronger. But otherwise, his was a little bit more about speed and spacing out your character.
Yeah.
Ike is a big man with a big sword.
Fucking powerhouse.
Yeah, he is in his games. He's a powerhouse. In this game, he's a powerhouse. He's a very slow but very strong character. And that's how he was represented in the series, and that's how he's represented in Smash Brothers. And how you play him is very different because pretty much every one of his moves differs from Marth's. Granted, they're all using his sword, which I guess you could draw some similarities there, but there's if you're drawing like similarities of sword, you can draw similarities to people that are fighting with their fists. There's a lot of things you can't necessarily be completely, absolutely different with every single character across the series.
Yeah, the big similarity between those two as they fight is the counter.
Yeah, the counter is one that they brought up, and it's something that Sakurai addressed in the thing. They wanted to try and do that role-playing point into it, and that's where Marth, Roy, and Ike all had some sort of counter, which, admittedly, the Fire Emblem series is a little bit heavier on the counters, but, that's not necessarily how it stays forever. But Ike was a drastically new character, big boy character, that played different from Marth. So now you have two brand new unique fighters, and one that they had as an echo that went away. Now, going into Smash 4 is where the numbers really start to fly up in terms of Fire Emblem characters, but it's also kind of where the differences actually start being like fermented in the how each character is from one another. So you still have Marth coming back. Marth's still there,
yes.
And then you have your Ike again. Ike's returning, and they even give him a costume variant where he is the big boy that he is in Radiant Dawn. Like, he's muscular, he's terrifying.
Yeah, there's between the two Fire Emblem games that Ike is in, there's like a 7-year difference, and during that time he grows like 3 feet and gains like 80 pounds of muscle.
I don't know what he was eating or what he was lifting, but man, he got big. Nonetheless, those two come back. So then we are introduced in the main game into two new fighters. I'll start off with the one that is a brand new fighter in the form of Robin. Robin is the character from Fire Emblem Awakening, and this is taking the Fire Emblem franchise. Fire Emblem franchise has tons of different types of fighters. They use magical spells, they use healing, they use axes, bows, spears. Am I missing anything? And they change into different beasts as well. So there's a huge variety of different fighters that come from there. So now we're introducing you to Robin, who is a tactician who uses a sword, a magical sword at that, but also heavily relies on magic. Mm-hmm. So we have a character that most of his moves are reliant on fire magic, dark magic, wind magic, and I thought I had another one. Oh, lightning magic.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different character. It comes from the same series, but it's addressing so many of the different other archetypes that are in there, and thus plays drastically different from Marth and Ike. So, brand new character, look at that, that's awesome. That's addressing so many different things, and if you aren't necessarily a huge 100% sword fighter character, here you go. Here's the other parts of the series. It's addressing uniqueness of the series, and it's addressing the uniqueness of the archetypes, and it's getting you a brand new character.
And then on top of that, while this isn't like the biggest thing in the world, they also gave Robin the female skin.
Which is true, which is where this character and the next one we'll just talk about starts to break the mold a little bit, is that they didn't want to have they had released nothing but guys from the Fire Emblem series. So now you're addressing also making like this new gender exclusivity in there in the form of female or male Robin, and then comes to the next character that they reveal, which was Lucina. And Lucina comes out, and it's the first official, like, on its own female character from the Fire Emblem series. Mm-hmm. And this is where it starts to get a little bit hazy, because Lucina plays nearly identical to Marth. The difference being is that she doesn't have that tipper mechanic, where the power in the Smash Brothers game, the power is equally throughout her entire sword, whereas Marth has more power in the tip and less power throughout the sword. Otherwise, their moves are essentially the same. Now, this is where it gets to another part. It's like, oh, it's another clone, it's another echo, it's a sword fighter. Couple things there. Number one, in the actual game itself, spoilers throughout the game. But if you haven't played it by now, it's been one of the top played Fire Emblem series, and it was widely revered, and they even brought it up in the revealing of the character. So I apologize, but spoilers. Lucina is a time traveler that comes from the future to try and help stop all the things that have happened in the past. And she dresses up and acts and uses the fighting style of Marth, which was the hero king that everybody have known in the Fire Emblem. He was in all the history books and everything like that. So she took on the form and said that she was this mysterious Marth character. She did her hair in the same way and had a mask just to make it look like where she was Marth. So to play to the exact same thing that was going in the story itself, Lucina was Marth. So to bring her into the series, playing exactly as Marth, makes complete sense. Absolute complete sense.
Yes.
And the reason that she doesn't have the tipper mechanic goes a little bit more towards the sword, which is brought up when another character is revealed down the road. But it's made to play the exact same way. But here we are. We have Marth, we have Ike, we have Robin, and then we have Lucina, who plays very similar to Marth. So, those are the characters we have now. We start to get into the DLC of Smash 4. The first one that they reveal for a Fire Emblem franchise is Roy again. And I think the most important part about this is why Roy got brought back. Is that they went through and they did a Smash poll that brought up, and they're trying to see what other characters are coming out. And they went to the community, and they're listening to see, like, what do people want? What is their first aspects? What are they seeing from this game? And they're like, people really want Roy. And they did the same thing with Lucas. They're like, why isn't Lucas in this game? They want Lucas back. So they brought them both back by massive fan request. Massive fan request. So you have another Fire Emblem character that people missed so drastically in Smash 4 and want them brought back. And then they bring Roy back, and while he does still have similar moves to Marth and Lucina, they've actually made this iteration, starting off in Smash 4, a new feeling character. It's like the balance between Marth and Ike, where Ike's a big boy, hits hard, and Marth has a little finesse to it. Roy kind of fits in between there. He's got power, not as much as Ike, but he's like quicker, like Marth. So it's like adapting to two different playstyles, bringing back an old character. So they could have just done it. They could have brought back and made it another complete Marth clone, but they went to the effort to make him completely unique. And also, side note, red hair, not blue hair. Different hair. Can't put him in there.
That's right. Can't use that argument.
Can't use that argument for Roy. But the big thing was that it was a massive fan request. And the same thing happened with Mewtwo, Lucas, and him. Everybody was clamoring, we want these characters back. We want them back so bad. So they went out and they listened and they made these characters and they changed them slightly from their old variants. So it wasn't just that they even copied and pasted. They went through and designed these characters again from the ground up. So that speaks world to, like, look, you clearly want some Fire Emblem characters in there. So then we get to the end of the Smash Brothers or Smash 4's lifetime, and they still introduce a couple new DLC characters. I don't know if it wasn't the last one; it was the second to last one. They go through and
Who was the last one?
No, Bayonetta was the very last one of Smash 4. Technically speaking, I mean, we're talking about like a 20-minute difference. If it's like Corrin and Bayonetta are twins, but one was born 20 minutes.
Yeah,
before.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, but nonetheless, they saw how much help the Smash Brothers series did to Fire Emblem from the beginning with Melee. Smash Brothers introduced a lot of people to Fire Emblem through Marth and Roy, and people started going to the games, and immediately that's where I started getting into the games. As I saw this, I'm like, Fire Emblem series, what's this? And ever since, I've played every game, beginning to end. I've went through and I love them all, and they're a lot of fun, and I understand that sometimes it's not everyone's, niche and everything like that, but nobody loves every single game to the fullest of their heart. But I loved it, and like that's where they saw that's how Roy and Marth had so much success, especially at the point that people were frustrated that Roy was gone and clamored for him to come back. So here comes a brand new game coming on the heels of Fire Emblem Awakening, which was the top-selling game that revitalized the series, and they have a new one coming out on the 3DS platform that uses a lot of the powerful concepts that Fire Emblem Awakening had, and develops a whole new story and tries to do this new two-sided archetype similar to the Pokemon series, to where you have kind of two sides of the same coin, but I think even more so, they drastically changed the story, but that's neither here nor there. So they are like, let's use this opportunity to show off this new character. Now, we bring in Corrin, and right off the bat, once again, no blue hair, haha. But still, Corrin is a brand new archetype that they had in the series for a long time that they haven't introduced into Smash, and that was in the form of shapeshifter. So they have various names throughout the series. They have the Lagoos, Manakee,
Manakache, whatever.
Yeah, they have a variety of names for them, but the
Tiggle.
For argument's sake, we're gonna say shapeshifters. And they shift into these different animals, and some of them are owls or wolves, and Corrin being able to shift into a dragon, and that's a big motif that's behind a lot of Fire Emblem stuff. There's some version of dragons that's an all-powerful thing. Well, now we bring in this new character, and that does have a sword, but does have a lot more unique components in where the character can shift its body to be like a huge impaling like dagger or spear, and then change its face to be different portions of the dragon. It has a stunning projectile and can
sprouts wings.
Sprouts wings. There's so many different things that come with this character, and it just blows my mind because it's like I would have never thought that would happen, and be able to relate it to the Fire Emblem series. But I think that this is the point that people started to say, oh no, another Fire Emblem character. But once again, let's go back and look at the roster that we have so far. Marth, is the original. Mm-hmm. Then we have Ike that was introduced. Big boy, plays differently. Yep. He's got a bigger sword. He hits a lot harder. He's heavier, so a different character. We have Robin, who introduces the magic and like the tomes version of it. So another completely different character. Lucina, which is addressing like the gender inequality that is happening in the Fire Emblem representation, but arguably an Echo character. So we'll give you that one for Marth. Mm-hmm. Roy comes back by massive fan request, and this is massive fan request, and even still has played different than his original counterpart. So we'll count it as semi-Echo because the original basis of it was off of Marth, even though there are distinct differences now. And then we move over to Corrin, who is the most recent one, doesn't play like any of the other fighters, has unique mechanics in the form of dragon-based moves and longer hitting spears. We'll give you, once again, here's a situation where they gave him another counter. I don't know what to tell you. That's not something that's highly prevalent in his game. And
it's not like it's a move that's unique only to Fire Emblem characters.
Yes. So it's something, okay, fine, we'll give you that. But everything else about this character is vastly new. So we are here with 4 unique characters, 1 semi-clone, 1 complete clone. So if you really sit there and look at it, we're looking at, we'll say, 4.5 characters if we count, the semi as that. So that's still really good, and that's not too much from the actual Fire Emblem franchise. There's plenty of other Marios and the Pokemons that have just as many representatives and are, arguably a bigger part of the Nintendo life if you're looking at purely sales. Mm-hmm. So now we get to Smash Ultimate. And Smash Ultimate is where people start going off the rails about this stuff, but for a strange reason, I can't figure out why. This is the thing that baffles me the most. So you bring everybody back. So everybody that we just talked about is back in the game. Mm-hmm. One of the first Echo fighters they reveal is Chrom. Now,
and even he's not even technically an Echo fighter.
Yeah,
but
and that is one portion of it. He's not completely one because he's a very strange hybrid.
Yes.
Is where they took one of Ike's moves and gave it to Chrom in his up B move, and then a lot of Roy's moves are very similar to it. So mm-hmm. I don't even know what to call that. Like he is an Echo. He's not quite like a semi-clone or semi-Echo, but he's not an Echo. Like,
yeah, we'll call him a semi-Echo for now.
Yeah, a semi-Echo, just for argument's sake on that one. Now, why is Chrom in the game? Like, oh no, another Fire Emblem character. This is another one that was massive fan request. that they alluded to when Robin was first revealed and Lucina was first revealed. Why isn't Chrom in the game? And even in the trailer themselves, they're like, oh, Chrom will get to fight another time.
Yep.
And essentially they put him in Robin's final smash because a big portion that started off with Awakening was the pair-up mechanic. So using that with Robin and Chrom was unique to their final smash and also very representation, like a good representation of their game. But everyone was like, why isn't Chrom here? Why isn't Chrom here? And people were clamoring to have Chrom in the game and like, oh, maybe he'll be added in the next game. Here he is, presented to you because this is such a massive request, but they're like, we don't want to go through and make a whole new character for it because we thought that he would play similar to that. And even when they said originally, why didn't we put Chrom in the game? Well, we put Robin in instead because he thought he wasn't just another swords fighter. But then people wanted Chrom so bad, they put him in there. And once again, they could have just copy and pasted exactly what Marth did. But no, they made a complete different character that kind of mends different properties to it and gives you what you want in, it gives you what you want in the individual character itself, but it also makes a brand new character that doesn't necessarily play exactly like any of the others. Yes, Rom and Croy are similar, and in this game you can actually have them as the Echo Fighter portion, but I still think that they're not 100% the same to where you would necessarily say they're clones. But once again, brought back, and just like with Dark Samus too. Dark Samus doesn't play any different from regular Samus, but they're given because of massive fan requests that they want to see these specific characters in the game, not just necessarily reskins. And I think that speaks worlds. Is like they're giving you this. They didn't have to put Chrom in the game, but they're like, it was such a massive fan request. Here he is. So now we have Chrom added into the game and all these other characters. So we got these, I guess you would say, like these 7 leading up into the DLC. But once again, I just want to say, Marth, original, completely unique on his own. Ike, new character, fine with the blue hair, but otherwise plays completely differently. So that's 2 unique characters. Robin uses tones, completely unique. Lucina, admittedly echo of Marth, so we'll put her to the side, doesn't count. So you're still at just the 3. Roy, who is brought back by request and revitalized, we'll put as a semi-echo, so we're at 3.5. Corrin comes in, completely brand new character, represents the dragon portion of the series and like the shape-shifting portion. So we're at 4.5 and an echo, and then we come back with Chrom, who is a semi-echo again. So we're back to a total of 5 characters, 5 total characters if you count the semis as halves, and a complete clone.
Yeah.
Look at the Mario series, look at all the other series, you have about that representation in all of them. So now we come down to this final character, this final reveal, and we'll put aside the whole thing about third parties and everything like that. Fire Emblem Houses is the top-selling Fire Emblem game of all time. And I'm going to turn it over to Luby. I can't speak about the game because I haven't played it yet because I'm broke. But, Luby, tell me why Three Houses is such a... Why Three Houses?
So, again, I'm biased because I love this series. But this game, it plays so different, so unique from all the other games. It lets you tailor almost everything about the game. So there's actually three houses. There's 3 different stories that you get to play through, all experiencing it as Byleth. As she kind of becomes like your avatar. She's the teacher of this academy, and a lot of people have called Three Houses like the best Harry Potter game that's ever been made. And it's true. It's so true. It's all the different houses are all the different Hogwarts houses. It's really hard to explain without actually playing the game, but there's you can do so much with Byleth. You can do so much in each of the 3 houses. All the stories are amazing. All the characters are really well fleshed out, and you can raise the characters as you want, as whatever class you want, to give them a wide variety of different skills. All the music is wonderful in this game. It's not the most challenging game, or at least I played it on normal. Did I play it on normal or hard? But either way, so far it hasn't been hugely challenging, but it's still a lot of fun to play, and it's shown. The sales numbers alone show just how much of a powerhouse this game and this series is, because the financial numbers are a little bit outdated because I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it was as of September 30th, which was 2 months after Fire Emblem came out. It became the 15th highest selling Switch title, which doesn't sound like much, but all the games that are above it are either launch titles or Zelda or Mario games or Pokemon games. So it's competing with all of these immensely strong franchises after only being out for 2 months. And it's a really fun game, and I think Byleth has earned his/her spot in this roster. And like we've been saying before, like the move set that we've been seeing from this character is unique enough to where I think some of the complaints are not as warranted against Byleth.
Yeah, and since you did, thank you for speaking about the actual game itself, but like looking at it from here, it is addressing the long lost archetype that no one saw in Smash Brothers. It's like, where are the axe wielders? Where are the spear wielders? Where are the archers? Here are literally all three of them into one character. Because if you have this one character that they revealed from Fire Emblem that has all this, could you imagine if they spanned it out into one character that only uses axes, one character that always uses lances, and one uses bows? Everyone would like stop playing it and it's called like Fire Emblem Ultimate or something like that. But they incorporated the last couple archetypes that truly capture the Fire Emblem series and capture how you can kind of mend characters in that game, as Luby has instructed, all into this one unique fighter. And also going to the thing, it has another guy or girl variant with, and to address it, something that they've done with this in particular that is much more noticeable than any of the other characters in the entire game, is the recolors of the different color variants you can choose for it really represent the other main components of the game. So like with Byleth, they have it to where the three color variants directly represent all the different house leaders.
Yes, that was such a good touch.
And then they have it, the other three skins representing other portions and other huge parts of the story. And there's a lot of them that if you go back and you look, some of the Fire Emblem's characters, they'll represent different characters in the series, but it's more like, oh, here's a nice homage, like the color variants you can kind of draw it. But these ones are like, if you weren't looking at it directly on, you could swear that's it. That's Edelgard. Like that's got to be her.
Yes.
That's exactly what she looks like in game.
Yes.
They did a fantastic job of it, so they really put the extra effort in, and they also put in that extra effort to show you that this is another fighter that's adapting a whole new persona in the game. Is that they are a heavier, slower character, kind of like Robin, but uses a variety of big range, disjointed moves, and also has a projectile. So it's like there's not really one that's 100% similar to that. I guess you can make the argument that, oh look, Robin uses a bunch of different tomes and this person uses a bunch of different melee weapons, but I guess that's one way to look at it, but it's still not the same character. It's kind of like saying that, oh, Link and Samus are the same because they're both characters that use projectiles. It's like they're not, though. They're completely different. And that's the big thing, is that looking at it and taking off necessarily the Fire Emblem logo, and I think that's the portion that gets to people, is like, oh, if we were to take off the Fire Emblem logo and this was a new character, there wouldn't be this backlash. Mm-hmm. But the fact that Fire Emblem is labeled on there, people have this hate for it. And it honestly doesn't make sense to me, because there's not really much out there. I mean, besides people like getting mad about the numbers, there's not much out there that's just people don't want Fire Emblem. You've had two characters that were added, one added back into the series and one created for the series, that were by massive fan requests for Smash Brothers. The Three Houses title is one of the top-selling Switch games that isn't a Mario or Link starter game. All these things point to, you want Three Houses, you won Fire Emblem in the massive game crossover of Smash Ultimate. But then when it comes out, everybody's infuriated about it. And it's really, I've been racking my brain about it ever since, and it's actually, I'm the reason we wanted to have this discussion, is I want to understand exactly why, because there's a lot of portions of it that don't necessarily meld together. Like, you're hearing one thing, but you're seeing another.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't understand.
I mean, I kind of get it. Like, people have other characters that they want represented in this franchise, and there are a lot of other places they could go, but I don't think, you know, going to Three Houses is the worst choice they could have made, despite what a lot of people are saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's how I feel, and that's how we feel about it. It's like, we love, once again, we're biased. We love the series. We love to see additions to it. We love to see the uniqueness of this new character being brought in. But at the end of the day, and I think a big portion of what we want to say is, listen, Super Smash Bros. Is a fantastic series. It's brought so many different people together. It's brought so many different game franchises together into one conglomerate, which nobody is even close to matching.
Yeah, if you could go back in time and tell your, like, let's say when Melee first came out, what was that 2001, 2002 or whatever, if you told that version of yourself that in the future you would get a Smash Bros. Game with Mario and Link, of course, Mega Man, Sonic, Pac-Man, Cloud, all these people together, and Piranha Plant,
yeah, they would,
Banjo-Kazooie, your little self would lose their little mind.
Your mind would explode. And then if they said, "Oh, there's Fire Emblem characters," like, "What's that? I don't know. This is awesome. It's
Yeah,
amazing."
you still don't know.
You would explode. So we encourage you to indulge your inner child and understand that this is such a major accomplishment. And to the other portion of it is that give the character a chance. I mean, the character hasn't even officially been, it's been announced, but it's not out yet. And not to place the hate so quickly on these things just from the initial reactions, and just go through and play the game and enjoy everything that you have and all the different components that are being played into it. And say for some reason you just can't get over the character itself, listen to the music, and the music is such a beautiful portion of it that really shouldn't be like representative like your dislike for a franchise or anything like that. And then also appreciate the fact that, like, this isn't the end. This isn't the end all be all.
Not even close.
To go through and love it. And I will go back and say there's probably a better way that it could have handled to where there wasn't as much explosion or hate. Mm-hmm. And I believe it was avoiding the misdirection. I believe it was possibly not making an entire direct devoted to this, which also I think anticipated the hype. And I think, as I mentioned it once or twice to Luby before, is that maybe the order that they did it kind of led into where this is going to happen.
Yeah, I understand that. It's you wanted this fighter pack to go out with a bang, and this, even I'll admit as a Fire Emblem fan, this wasn't like the biggest bang you could have gone out on. But that's just us as Western fans.
Yeah, and I think so. And they have actually went through and they said, like, even on the Eastern side they weren't as crazy about this like that, and it seemed like a lackluster end. And to be honest, it did kind of have a rising and dip in terms of what's going on with the characters. So you start off, any of the first characters is going to be like met with like speculation but also excitement. And then they went up to Hero, which Hero was representing a new franchise. The hype was a little bit more up. And then this is just me, and I think this is more speaking from a veteran Smash player than anything else. Banjo-Kazooie was like the climax. It's like, holy crap, I can't believe this is amazing. Mm-hmm. And then we went to Terry Bogard, which like wasn't necessarily as representative of like the Western portion, but more of the Latin America portion, but it was still like clamoring off a little bit. And then we get to Corrin, which is just a first party. I think reorganizing how they revealed the characters and how they went through and built the characters could have actually changed the entire thing. Honestly, I think they should have ended with Banjo. I think Banjo would have been a perfect candidate for the ultimate like end hype. And then they could have put your Fire Emblem characters second or third, and it would have gotten not as much hate because it would have been, I think, really second, because what you do is you start off with your Joker, and then you lead to your Fire Emblem. And what that does is that creates huge speculation for the Fighters Pass, because it's not going to be assumed that everyone's a third party. It's going to be like, it could literally be anybody.
That's good.
And I think
that's
that's
a good
what
point.
that's a big portion that came into the last one, and we said it again. It's like everyone thought it was third party because leading up to it, but it's like if you do that, it creates a completely different dynamic. And I think there are some things that they could have done that would have made it better, but ultimately you got to enjoy everything that you're getting and understand that this is not the end at all. It's just going to keep going. We're keep getting new patches. We're going to keep getting new characters, new songs, new stages,
New Mii Fighter skins.
new Mii Fighter skins, and just understand that there's so many great things that are coming out of this game, and they understand, and it's shown in the sales, and they're not slowing down at all. They're going through and they're trying to incorporate as much as you can. So please take the time, understand, go through, play this new character when they release on the 28th, get the feel for them, and do yourself a justice and take this time to learn from it and not necessarily be mad about the Fire Emblem series. And if you've never played it, use Byleth as your, or Byleth, I did it again. Use Byleth as your segue into the Fire Emblem series and really go back and play these games and realize that they are wonderful games and give them the chance. And it might be something completely you might experience a whole new thing, and we come back, a couple months from now and you played it and you're like, you know what, maybe I was a little bit too harsh about it. Or maybe you'll have the same thing, but at least you'll go through that experience and understand that this is a fantastic franchise and this is also a great addition to the roster.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. But we want to know what you guys think. Who were you anticipating in the 5th slot? What are your, thoughts about the character itself? And really just give us a little bit more oomph, a little bit more detail as why this was real hype for you or wasn't necessarily hype for you. We'd love to have these open types of discussions. But unless...
Also, thank you for watching the video. If you would be so kind as to give the video a thumbs up. It's very little effort for you, but it goes a long way for us. Subscribe to the channel, and also keep an eye out for us on Twitch. We've been streaming on and off, and we're going to try and get back into it with our team.
Yeah, and our link should be in the description below. Otherwise, thanks very much. This has been Don and Luby, and have a wonderful day.
Goodbye.